Welcome to Windsor High School Catering. We are in the process today of learning about how to make a standard pie crust pastry. And we're going to be applying all of our skills and knowledge that we have come to this semester, and also understanding the importance of gluten and the control of gluten in a recipe so that you get a tender, flaky crust. So we have our recipe here. We're going to be putting in 6 tablespoons of shortening. We're going to be using 1 cup of flour, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of cold water. So let's get started. So remember, when you're doing your flour measurements, that you're going to fluff up your flour so it doesn't pack. And you're going to make sure that it's a level measurement. Okay, we have these wonderful pre-done shortening sticks, so all you have to do is count your 6 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you just cut that off. Okay, then I would suggest with your salt that you measure it over something because it tends to spill, and then you can use your level to get it completely right. Put that in there. And then we can pour this back into the container. All right, and then the last bit is to stir this in with a fork, get that salt incorporated in. Then you're going to put this into your recipe. Oh, like sticky mess. And then we're going to use a technique called cut in. It will blend the shortening into the flour in little small pieces. So I'm going to need a utensil called a pastry blender. So that's what we're going to use for this. So what you do is I call it the chop chop. So you can chop, 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 and then you're going to scrape it out of there, and then you mix it around, and you chop, 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 and mix, and you keep going until it is small little crumbles. Okay, so I think the recipe indicates that when it looks like small peas, then you are done with that procedure. And that technique is called cut in with pastry blender. So now we're ready to add our water. So we're going to take our tablespoon and we're going to put in, to start with, 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to use a fluff. So you just use that fork to fluff all that around. And you'll see that it starts to come together in little clumps. So right now it's still too dry, so we're going to add 2 more. And again, we're going to fluff that around. Eventually that will all start to come together in a big ball. So the recipe says 2 to 3, depending on the humidity of the day. If it's really dry, it can take a lot more. So we're up to now 6. Okay, so that took 8 tablespoons, and now we've got our dough all in a ball. So now we're going to transition to working your dough, getting it ready to make into the pie crust. Alright, so we've now got our pastry dough all in a nice ball. I've dusted my counter with some flour so it doesn't stick. And we're now going to divide this into 4 equal-ish parts. The reason it's 4 equal parts is because your pie tin is this big. So we're going to make sure that it fits this small little individual pie. So I'm going to take and I'm going to flatten that out a little bit. I'm going to dust my rolling pin. Maybe move this off to the side a little bit. And when you are working with a pie crust, you want to always roll from the center out and lift, center out, lift, center out, lift. And so you're always going in a circular type motion so that, and if it starts to stick, you take a momentary pause, give little more flour in your rolling pin, and you just keep working your crust until it is about an inch bigger than your pie tin, right? So then you take and you roll this back and you pull it so that it comes up off the counter and you can lay it in your pie tin. So then you unfold it so that it lays into your pan very nicely. My goal through this whole thing is not to stretch it too much, because right now we've got the gluten, which is holding it together. That's the structure, protein, and flour. And so we want to handle it really gently so that we don't get a tough pie crust and we get it nice and flaky and tender. So I'm treating it really gentle. I'm going to trim some of these edges off, and I'm going to just get it down into the pan. So now I can fill it half full with pie filling. So I'm choosing some apple today. We want to leave room at the top so that I can either do another pie crust for a second crust, or I can have room to go ahead and flute the edge. So I'm going to show you a one crust pie. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to just bring this edge up around the top, and then you can go along and you can create like a zigzag, or you can do a real easy one where you just take and you press it with a fork and it makes a nice pretty edge to it. So that's a single crust pie. But you might need to be creative and create a second crust. So this is where you roll again. Same procedure as before. Center out, dusted roll. Okay, and I'm going to fold it so that I can put it in the center. Okay, and I'm going to just lay it over. And then I'm going to trim it around the edge. Okay, then I'm going to crimp it together to seal it. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create my decorative edge that kind of seals it together. And then because it is now completely closed, I want to make sure I give it some air holes so that when it's baking it doesn't explode in the oven. Then I'm going to take and just cut a nice little design here. And we have a very happy pie.